little review here. We're gonna be talking about It's a Wonderful Afterlife by Gurinder Chadha'S. You know, overall, I think there's some interesting things coming out around this time of the year. When it comes to December, a lot of big releases come out, a lot of interesting releases come out. And I'm gonna give it away to Em to kind of walk us through this one. Em, well, give us the overview.
So from a woman who actually made something like Bend It Like Beckham. I don't know if you guys are old enough to have watched Bend It Like Beckham. You've watched Bend It Like Beckham. It's a classic. Come
It's a
on.
classic. Yes.
It's a classic. And Michael, have you watched Bend It Like Beckham? If you haven't, you should watch Bend It Like Beckham.
We're growing the must-watch list. It's going right there at number 1.
Yep, right to the top.
Gurinder Chadha is the same woman who gave us Bend It Like Beckham. And then I was expecting a lot from It's a Wonderful Life. But originally, this movie released theaters in 2010, by the way. And it finally found its way to Prime Video, where it got my attention. I was like, Gurinder Chadha, must watch. Because remember, all her other movies, Bride and Prejudice and Baji on the Beach, and they're all cult classics, right? They're the British cult classics of Indianisms, right? So I was expecting the same thing here. And the only thing I loved about the movie, I have a new guy on my hot list. His name is Sendil Ramamurthy. And
here we go.
Sendil, when he smiles, my heart flips. Seriously flips. Aww. And then I realized that Sendil Ramamurthy was Never Have I Ever. He plays Devi's father in Never Have I Ever. And he is so handsome. He's so handsome. But this movie follows a woman called Mrs. Sethi, who lives in Southall, London. And Mrs. Sethi has an issue. She has a daughter called Roopi. And Roopi just can't meet a good Indian match. And she's tried very hard, but everybody who looks at Roopi says she's fat and she doesn't even wax a mustache. So how are we going to marry her? So that's the issue that Mrs. Sethi has. And then all the people who have either ridiculed Roopi or rejected her end up dead in some way or form. And the way he kills them is, how the killer kills them is a spicy curry. It's inhumanly spicy curry. And that's the weapon of choice for Mrs. Sethi. Mrs. Sethi is played by the great Shabana Azmi. And Roopi is played by the great Goldy Notay. And these amazing actors. Now, what happens is all of a sudden there's an event in Mrs. Sethi's life. And when we realize it's Mrs. Sethi who's really creating the spicy curry, is when all the people that she's killed come back as ghosts because they can't move on to the other life because of some reason. But they can't move on and reincarnate, but they can move on and reincarnate if Mrs. Sethi herself dies. But she says, I will die once Roopi is married. So now there is this.
And classic auntie fashion.
And there are these ghosts that she's killed, one of them with a tandoori chicken skewer in their head, one with a rolling pin on their head. So all these ghosts are walking around with her, and she's literally having conversations with these ghosts, and they're trying to, now all the ghosts help her to get Roopi married. And in comes this really handsome cop, Sendil Krishnamurthy called Raj. And they're like, he's good. And all the Punjabi ghosts are like, he's good, but he's a little dark. He's not fair, like Indians do. So this entire
I think one thing that like makes this just look like an interesting watch right off the bat is like the ensemble they have for the people that were died and that like came back, right? Like the costume, everything. Like how did that land? Was it like very cult-like?
The costumes are crazy because they're literally walking around with skewers in a head. One person died of dough in his mouth. So
it almost reminds me of like the Success. Yeah, like people like Rocky Horror for the same reason, right? Like you have the ensemble of like the background and everything. Like they're just all wacky people. Like I definitely am getting this vibe from this one as well. I mean, I don't know how this one went, so unlooked in 2010 because now it's on Amazon and I can 100% say we found a hidden gem here at Daisy's Life.
It was a hidden gem, but you know what I really, really was expecting a bender like Beckham, because that's what we expected Gurinder Chadha. It's not bending that level. Okay, so there are issues that I have with the movie. Obviously, it was made in 2010 and they weren't refined enough, or people weren't thinking, so much feminism at that point in time. But the whole idea of the movie is that she's fat and she has a mustache. All right. But the moment she starts wearing sexy clothes and she gets rid of the mustache and puts on makeup, everybody falls for her. She's getting men falling for her left, right, and center. And I think that is a stereotype that in storytelling, would avoid in 2022. I think people really didn't care so much, or they didn't think through these things in 2010 while storytelling. But yeah, she had to look sexy for men to fall for her, and that is sad, right?
It's sad, but I also think it was a lot of our experiences. Older generation, my generation. I remember being a chubby child with a mustache, and it was pretty bad. So, I think younger kids, they didn't have to deal with that a lot, which is fantastic. I'm really glad for them. But like,
I remember my mom stopping waxing my mustache all the way till 10th class, and I was getting ridiculed at school, and she just wouldn't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Does this film kind of, in a way, like, bring comedy to those types of things, or does it feel a little out of touch? Like, would you say it's like a good way to like make joke of like maybe those experiences that women have gone through when they were a kid, or like I said earlier, is it slightly out of touch? Like, it feels uncomfortable to watch?
I don't think so. It's just the story of Mrs. Sethi and Roopi Sethi, and how Roopi Sethi can get married till she dresses up well. And this boy literally loves her even when she doesn't. I mean, then they show this Raj is actually genuinely falling in love with her, while he's pretending to date her because he's investigating the case, because all the dead people have one thing in common: the Sethis, right?
Oh my gosh.
So I think it's a funny movie, but gosh, Sendhil Ramamurthy is so handsome. He's gonna be there forever. He's Ryan Reynolds category. I mean, there are scenes in which he smiles, and I'm like, he smiles.